Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Rohan Khandelwal, your Marrow Surgery faculty, and it's an absolute pleasure introducing Dr. Fathima to all of you. She's scored an amazing score of 246 out of 300 in the recently concluded FMG exam. Heartiest congratulations, Dr. Fatima.
Thank you so much, sir.
So, Dr. Fatima, you've been a Marrow Plan C user and you did your MBBS from Dubai. Why don't you tell the audience about your journey with Marrow? When did you start using it, and how did you go about Marrow Plan C?
Okay. I started off with Marrow from second year of my MBBS.
Okay.
Mm, Initially, I was not very consistent. I used to take it as a supplementary lectures. I used to like watching those lectures. It gave me an added information, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Especially subjects which I were difficult with, like pharmacology, microbiology, those subjects. So I used to prepare small notes while listening to those lectures, and I kept it. I think it was edition 4.5 or something that time.
Four.
Then
Yeah.
yeah, I mainly used Marrow, like complete main videos for my main four subjects: medicine, OB/GYN, surgery, and peds,
Mm-hmm.
and somewhat of ENT and opthal as well. So it used to help me with my clinical postings. That's why I
So
used Marrow initially.
you did your MBBS from Dubai. It's an uncommon location. So how is the teaching there? How is the academics, clinical work in Dubai?
The first 2.5 years is preclinical subjects.
Mhm.
So it is anatomy, biochem, physiology. It's the same subjects as India. Then we have the clinical years to the third and fourth years.
Mhm.
So those 2 years we go for clinical postings. The whole day we're at the hospital. So
Okay.
from there, from the rounds and from those, that's what we learn from.
Mhm.
And then we used to have evening lectures. So that is how our this thing was usually.
Perfect. So you mainly you had Marrow since second year, but you utilized it mainly for your clinical subjects. And
Right.
by that time, you were on edition 6.5.
Right. So
Perfect. So you had finished all these lectures during your MBBS tenure and you had your notes. Were you even doing MCQs at that time, or did
uh,
you leave them for later?
no, I used to solve MCQs of main videos, like all the main four subjects.
Hmm.
Not all the QBanks, but whichever topics I felt like it was difficult for me, I used to just solve QBank, because I felt like after QBanks you would understand better. Um,
Absolutely.
that's when you know where you're weak at, I feel.
So were you solving the NEET PG Bank or the FMG Bank?
That time I did not check any hashtags. I used to just solve. I didn't
Yeah. So
solve any
the NEET
PYQs or
PG.
anything.
Yeah, so I think so. Over the last couple of days, after interacting with a lot of toppers, what I've realized is that those who were pushing themselves more, those who were preparing with the NEET PG modules, were much better prepared for this exam, and they are the ones who've scored extremely well. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that's what happens in training. If you push yourself beyond the level which you want to achieve, you will always do better.
Right, sir.
So once you had these notes with you, and when did you start preparing for the FMG exam? How many months?
I started my solid preparation from September after my internship ended.
So you
So we had
utilize those notes, and then you focus more on MCQs during that 6 month period.
right. So, I felt like I was weak in preclinical subjects, so I
Mhm.
used to listen to the revision modules of those preclinical subjects and solve those Q banks more than the clinical.
Perfect.
Clinical subjects, I used to not watch the videos per se. I used to just, I had the notes, I used to read the notes and solve Q banks.
Fair enough. So that is another very good learning for those who are listening to this, that you'd already done the main videos
Right.
for the clinical subjects. So there was no point watching them again and having the FOMO that I need to watch the revision videos also, because you were comfortable with the notes.
Right.
Um, and for those where you did not see the videos, you had the revision videos which you could fall back on, and you followed those notes in the last 6 months for those
Right.
subjects.
Right.
Perfect. So another very common question which we get from FMGs is that how many, so if I'm giving myself 6 months to prepare for any exam, and the next cycle will be in 6 months, how many MCQs or questions should one be doing on a regular basis?
On a regular basis, at least start off with 50 to 100, and then you slowly upgrade yourself. Don't push yourself too much in the beginning. Try to get a base in the beginning, and once you're done with few subjects, you start giving questions of those subjects, because I feel like revision is better with questions
No,
instead of
absolutely.
again reading again and again. Passively reading, you do the questions so that you actively recall whatever you learned,
Yeah,
and
and
then
at
in
the
case
end of
you
the day, it's an MCQ exam, and
correct.
I've seen a lot of FMGs falter at that point where they focus more on the theory part, but they don't practice enough MCQs. So
Right.
that's sound advice, that start with 50, gradually build on it, and your peak
Initially,
should.
I was also not doing many questions, but then I was told it's better to do questions so that you get an idea of how the exam is. In the end, you should not be pressurized during the exam that, okay, everything is new for you. Because it's not a theory written exam, right? It's an MCQ based exam. You need to be learning how to rule out options, and that's how I felt as well better.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what about the questions which you were getting wrong? How did you revise those questions? Were you making custom modules out of them, or were you bookmarking them and you came back to them later? How did you deal with those wrong questions?
I used to bookmark them, and if there was any image or flowchart, I would save them and put it to my notes, so that
Perfect.
next time I read those notes, I read that part as well. I read that topic as well.
Okay. Did you participate in any of the marathons, or you were self-disciplined, so you were already solving questions on a regular basis?
I think marathon started in Jan, around Jan this time.
Yeah,
So I was already doing questions, so I
already
didn't
doing.
want to add it more pressure.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, yeah. So that's good. If you can do it yourself, you don't need external motivation. Um, what about the tests, the subject-wise tests and the mock tests for FMG? Did you appear for them?
Yes, I appeared for the FMG mock test, the last one, and I
Hmm.
used to give GTs as well.
And what was your score in the mock test?
It was around 223. I'm not very sure, but it was around that much, 220s.
And in the GTs also, you were upwards of 200 most of the time?
No, it used to range. Initially, it used to range from 170, then 160. It varied actually. It depended. Um, Sometimes I used to get 170. Sometimes I used to get 200. It was a wide range actually.
So, when did you start off giving GTs?
I started, I think, around 2 3 weeks after my after I started preparing, like from September end towards the end, I started.
So,
So
six
initially, I used
months
to
of
give,
GTs probably you've done.
yeah, around 6.
And that's a remarkable progression from being at 170 to actually getting 246. So if you were at 170, 180, what things did you do with utilizing that GT data which helped you push your score from 170, 180 to 246 in the actual exam?
Marrow actually gave a list of those subjects which you're weak at also. Like after completing one GT, it gives you an idea of which subjects you're weak at. So
Right.
the next time I study, I would study that first and then give the GT next.
Fair enough.
Again,
So you were.
sometimes you might have studied one subject and you get good score on one GT. The next time, because maybe I lacked revision, it can go down as well. So again, I used to revise those.
Perfect. So you use the GT analysis, and weak subjects you used to revise before the next GT exam.
Right.
Right. A lot of students initially used to say that the Marrow GTs are a bit on the harder side, but after appearing for this exam, what were your thoughts? Because after the exam, we got messages from a lot of students saying that it was quite a tricky exam.
This exam, I felt like the first paper was a bit more difficult compared to the second paper.
Mhm.
Comparing GT, the way the paper was set, like the paper one, it used to be more preclinical and PSM and all those, and second was clinical subjects. So it was the same way the paper was set, but then the level of difficulty, it varied. It had a mixed bag. It had all kind of questions in GT. The way I studied from GT is that how to rule out options basically. I think that helped giving more questions, so I was not pressurized in the exam. That it's the first time I'm seeing a question bank like that.
Fair
So
enough. And another thing which we got to know from students was that there were hardly any direct repeats, at least for surgery and path. That is what I was told, that some of the topics were there, but direct repeats have reduced
Very
in
few.
the last few FMG exams. So, what would be your tips for students who are preparing for the next cycle? That should they only focus on PYQs, because a lot of students ask us, or they should read the topic around it as well?
I think it's better to read the topics around it and completely have a base of the subject.
Fair enough.
Not just the PYQs, because anyways, and after FMG, the next step is to go for NEET PG or the next exam. So might as well finish off the base, have a basic idea about the subject, and then you add on, like how said, initially start off with FMG PYQs, then you add on NEET PG hashtags as well, and one step ahead aims as well. So you get an idea of, you don't cover just the PYQs of FMG, but you cover because it's the same board in the end who's conducting the exam. So I feel like they
Absolutely.
would bring PYTs of NEET PG and AIMS as well. So that
100%. I completely agree with what you're saying. And what was your strategy in the last month? A lot of students have trouble summarizing everything 1 month before the exam. So, what exactly did you do 1 month right up to leading up till the exam?
The last 1 month, I kept a schedule for around 20 days to complete
Okay.
everything. The second revision, I wanted to complete the whole 19 subjects. It did not work out that way, but at least I did half. And then the last 10 days, I did not push myself too much. I used to just solve question banks of those subjects which I think I did not complete it entirely. I used to solve the PYQs of NEET, PG, and AIMS, and then I used to read those topics
Fair
from
enough.
given the explanation, and then I would go back to my notes and read those and keep.
So, quick fire round, which was your strongest subject and weakest subject during your
Medicine
prep?
was my strongest.
Okay.
I think weakest would be pharmacology, I guess.
Okay. How did you work on pharmacology? And if that was your weakest, what were the extra efforts which you put in for pharmacology then?
Extra efforts, I didn't put much. I used to just solve the QBanks and add more, annotate more information to that.
Okay.
And I didn't
Best
push my
feature?
too much on pharmacology. I thought I'll score from the others and balance it out.
Fair enough. Favorite feature of the Marrow app?
Custom modules.
How many
I
custom
didn't want to
modules?
use another book for it. It
Mhm.
was there in the app itself.
Perfect. Perfect. And what are your future targets now? Now that you've cleared this, you would want to prepare for the PG exam. What subject are you aiming for in the PG exam?
Medicine or pediatrics.
Excellent. I think so. That would make Dr. Rakesh very happy. And so, Fatima, finally, those who are going to be appearing for the mid-year 2025 exam, what would be
Mhm.
your 5 tips to those students? Please keep in mind that some of them have watched some lectures before, some of them are
Mhm.
starting afresh. What advice would you give to them?
Don't skip any subject. One thing. Second is, don't just focus on the PYQs. Read the PYTs and at least have a base of the subject. Third is,
Mhm.
solve as many Q banks as possible. Don't think only FMG Q banks. Solve all the kind of Q banks. Give more GTs. Don't take GTs as your final exam. Just give it for the, just to have an get used to the how the exam is going to be, and don't get too stressed out. That's all. Have good support.
Perfect. I think so. You've summarized it beautifully, and thank you for taking out time and talking to us. Heartiest
It
congratulations
was a
once
pleasure.
more, and I
Thank you.
hope we get to interview you again after the PG exam as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Have a
Thank you.
nice day.
You too. Thank you.